What up, African world? It's your boy Home Team here. I'm back at it with another video of African history, culture, and worldview. And today we're going to delve into some African literature. Now, why is African literature so important? Well, it's important because African literature has some of the oldest literatures on the planet, which makes it very unique concerning the overall human story. Now, previously I did a video on Garcia's lute, which is literature from the Dausi coming straight out of West Africa. And today, we're going to talk about some ancient Egyptian literature called The Tale of the Shipwrecked Sailor. This is probably one of the oldest written tales on the planet. The story comes from the Middle Kingdom of Egypt and was written by a scribe named Amenah. So just a little background before we begin. Now, a ship returns to Egypt from a long voyage. The merchant owner of the ship is afraid that the pharaoh will be angry with him because his business hasn't prospered. His attendant, a young sailor, tells him a story of an earlier journey that he once had, in which he was shipwrecked and met a giant serpent. The sailor means to show that it's not so much what you do, but how you tell it that counts. But the master isn't so sure. The story goes like this. 4,000 years ago, a ship glided into its home harbor in the land of Egypt. A sailor jumped ashore and, with the rope, he tied the ship to the post. His comrades rejoiced and embraced one another, so glad they were to have survived their long journey at sea, and to know that soon they would be filling their arms with their children and kissing their wives. But as the ship's owner stepped ashore, dark, anxious lines crossed his brow. His business in the lands of Nubia had not prospered, and he feared the anger of the great pharaoh who ruled the land of Egypt. He had an attendant, a smart young fellow, who understood what was troubling his master's mind. As they stepped off the boat, he tried to give his master some words of assurance. "Be satisfied, my lord, for we have returned in good health, and not a single one of us is lost. You may go and tell the tale of our journey to the pharaoh. Choose your words carefully, trust in your eloquence, and all will be well." But the master was not only irritated by these words, he was very angry, and he spoke to his attendant. "You are home, but your mind is still wandering? A man's mouth may save him, but so it may also get him into trouble. Do you always say out loud any thought that flies into your head? If you must babble such nonsense, pray, say it quietly to yourself." The smart young man was not offended by this rebuke. Instead, he replied to his master with a story about another adventure that he once had undertaken. And this is what he told him. "I was on a journey across the great green sea to the mines of the pharaoh. We had 120 sailors, the best in Egypt, their hearts fiercer than lions. They had seen many skies. They had seen many lands. They could tell a storm before it came and gale before it happened. As we approached the land, the wind arose and threw up enormous waves. Our ship split in two, and all the mortal souls within were at the mercies of the great green sea. I grabbed a plank of cedar wood and stayed afloat. A wave picked me up and placed me down on the shore of an island. After I had lain for 3 days, all alone in some bushes, I arose and looked for something for my mouth. I found it in abundance, figs and grapes, all manner of good herbs, berries and grain, melons of all kinds, fishes and birds. Indeed, the island did not lack for anything good. After I had satisfied my hunger, I dug a pit, lit a fire, and made a burnt offering to the gods. Suddenly, I heard a crashing sound, which I took to be a wave crashing against the land. The trees shook, and the earth moved. I uncovered my eyes and saw that an enormous snake was slithering towards me. He was the size of a temple building. His face was that of a man, and he wore a beard as tall as a pillar. His skin was blue, and he was overlaid with gold. I threw myself on my belly before him. He opened his mouth and said, "Who brought you? Who brought you? O commoner, who brought you? If you delay your reply, it shall be the worse for you. Your life shall be extinguished like the flickering flame of a candle." I lay still, stunned, silent, my mouth full of sand. When the serpent saw that it could get no reply out of me, he scooped me up in his mouth and carried me to his cave, where he laid me down. Again he asked, "Who brought you? Who brought you, O commoner? Who brought you to this land of the great green sea, whose two sides are lapped by waves?" And then, realizing that my life depended on my words, I replied to him, "I was on a mission sent by the Pharaoh. We had 120 sailors, the best in Egypt, their hearts fiercer than lions. They had seen many skies. They had seen many lands. They could tell a storm before it came and gale before it happened. Each one was no less strong or fierce than his companion, and there was not a single fool among us. As we approached the land, the wind arose and threw up enormous waves. Our ship was split in two, and of all who were on the board, I alone was saved. And behold, here I am at your side. I was brought to this island by a wave of the great green sea." It seemed that my words soothed the anger of the great serpent, for he smiled gently and replied to me, "Fear not, O commoner, do not be pale, for it is God who has let you live and has brought you to me. You will spend 4 months on this island of the blessed, which does not lack for anything good. At that end of that period, a ship will arrive and take you home to your wife and family, and you shall live and finally die in your own town. Now, since you have survived this accident, let me tell you of a tale of calamity that befell me. I once lived on this island with my family, 75 serpents in all, without counting an orphan girl who was brought to me by chance and who was dear to my heart. One night, a star came crashing down from heaven, and they all went up in flames. Only I was spared, and behold, here I am, utterly alone. But you, if you are brave and overcome your fears, you will fill your arms with your children and kiss your wife. You will see your house and live among your family." When I heard this prophecy of my salvation, I wept and bowed and touched the ground before him and said, "On my return, I shall tell the Pharaoh all about you and your greatness. I will bring you sacred oils and perfumes and incense with which the gods are honored in the temples. I shall slay animals for you and sacrifice. I shall bring you birds and ships full of all kinds of treasures from Egypt, and they shall speak of you in the councils and honor you throughout the land." And when he heard this, he laughed and rebuked me. "Do not trouble yourself with incense, for you are not rich in perfumes. As for me, I am a prince of the land of Punt, and I have the richest scents. You need not return, for after you depart, this island shall be covered by the sea." My rescue and salvation came true exactly as he said. After 4 months had gone by, I climbed a tall tree, and behold, I saw a ship on the horizon. It came to rescue me. And as I took my leave of my serpentine host, he said, "Go to your house, see your children, spread my good name in your city. This my due from you." He gave me gifts of incense, myrrh, tails of giraffes, and elephant tusks. As I departed, I and all who were on board the ship gave our praises to the serpent god. We sailed northwards, and 2 months later I came before the Pharaoh and presented him with a tribute of gifts I had brought from the island. I told him of my adventures, and he thanked me before the council and rewarded me with a position in his court. With these words, the attendant finished his story of his shipwreck and survival. The master of the ship had waited patiently on the quay by the side of the ship and had listened carefully. He was not pleased by the story, and he said, "Save your smart words, my young friend. Such drops of hope do me no good. Who gives water to a goose in the morning when it is due to be slaughtered in the afternoon?" Now, there are many different interpretations of the story, but my take on it is fairly simple. It seems to me that the tale is teaching us the value of hope. It teaches us that, in a sense, we are the orchestrators of our own destiny. Your outlook and perspective can help shape and define your experience. I thought it was interesting that when the sailor shared his story to the snake, ironically, they found that their story was quite similar. Despite all the fear that he had in sharing and being vulnerable, he found that somebody was very similar to him. As always, you guys can have full access to African history lessons and sources through Patreon. The link is in the description box below. It's your boy, Home Team. Know thyself. Remember your ancestors. Peace.